And we are live from the Tolkien room, or is it now the fantasy room because of all the Robin Hobb and the Critical Role stuff that's going to be moving in?
Fantasy room.
Okay, we are rolling Kifi, which you can sort of see just a little bit. See, you have no problem showing up in the full frame. I get part of my head cut off if I also have them on the Kifi. We are escaping from the news cycle, trying not to doom scroll, trying to just, find some zen, and rolling up to fill orders for the ancient temple incense I make, known as Kifi. Yesterday, if you joined the stream, I was in here rolling a lot of the latest batch, which we released to the public only yesterday. And it is called Phoenix. The magical working for this particular incense started on October 31st, 2020 at 11:33 p.m. because I was being very funny and anal about it. And
being astronomically accurate.
There is no astronomical stuff that's technically associated with the Kifi making, at least what comes down to us. But it seemed appropriate to go with stuff that, well, anyway, since I'm doing a redo on stuff and my own version of it.
Yeah.
But Phoenix is both just an incense that you can use in your home and for things like that, but it is also for me a magical working that is created over the 10 to 15 days that you're making the actual incense and then the months that it cures. And in the case of Phoenix, that magical working is tuned toward renewal, rebirth, rising from the ashes. And there was a reason why I started it at the end of October and was hoping it would be ready for a certain time in January. Didn't quite expect anything to be as intense as yesterday, but here we are. Hello. So, yes, this is another Shirt Punch shirt. And if you are a fan of Morticia and Gomez, relationship goals.
Oh yeah, and happy anniversary.
Oh yeah, technically it is our anniversary, 4 years with this lovely human being. Thank you, everybody. I'm gonna kind of move back and forth if I don't get to questions and stuff. I really do need to get these because there was a ton of orders. There's a lot.
Yeah, my email's kind of overwhelming.
Yeah. So partly this is me to
help.
Not have Illyria completely freaked out by the contents of the email box. Illyria is one of those people who manages or is compelled, I'm not sure which is the actual way of putting it, to make sure that there's no, it has to be a clean email box.
When we say clean, I've trained myself over the course of years to not let emails sit for more than a couple days unless I really don't know what to do with them.
How?
It was hard, but it's clearly working.
It's
orders coming in a thing to do. I will do that now. But when there's a 50-year-old, I can't.
So the process that I'm doing is, so the Kifi has to be rolled by hand. It doesn't technically have to be. I could cut off squares and package those and then let people pinch off what they need and use, whatever their preference is. But traditionally it's hand rolled into these little balls that are kind of representative of the ball that is rolled by the scarab beetle, which is also connected to transformation and rebirth and a whole bunch of cool things. And then because it's a very sticky incense, each batch is dusted with a fine powder. The default is benzoin, which has a sweet, almost vanilla smell to it and blends with all of the other scents in the Kifi. In the case of the one that I'm working with right now, which is Lunar Eclipse, and we sold a ton of it last night, so we need to make sure it's packaged up. This one has a lot of dragon's blood in it, and it is additionally coated in dragon's blood, which gives it this nice, rich, rusty red color.
Red.
And this one there's a lot of warm and sweet. The dragon's blood starts with a powdery sweetness, and a little bit of an underlying brine, I think. Just a touch, like the kind of salt that makes sweet pop.
Interesting.
And then there's a warm, syrupy, like spice.
Yeah, that part I get. You have a very interesting sense of smell.
I have a very interesting, actually most of my senses are kind of peculiar.
As they should be.
I have been tested and am a super taster, and my eyes see more shades of purple than your average person. And I don't know, I'm just weird. Who are artists, folks who seem to have a talent for blending color and whatnot. Like if you test the rods and cone set up at the back of their eyes, many of them, not all, but many of them have an advantage because they see more shades of color than your average person. I mean, it's the same. It's the same thing as like perfect pitch. Not everybody who does music well has perfect pitch, but it certainly doesn't hurt. And if you have perfect pitch, you're probably going to be attracted to doing music. Like there's a layer of it and a depth of it that you get that your average person may not experience.
It's like your body is just tuned to do that thing.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, and it doesn't mean that like you still have to fucking work. Like like that's the thing.
Oh,
Like
yeah.
if you don't put the work in, you're not going to be good at it, perfect pitch or otherwise. But anyhow, so we're just gonna shoot the shit. Thank you, everybody. Does it smell like a Salem bookshop? Yeah, it kind of does because of the books and all of the incense.
So many books.
Oh, that's a little chunk of something that didn't dissolve.
Yeah, there's been a couple of those.
Yeah, I've been taking I've been thinking of them as the ugly Kifi, and starting to just put them aside, and maybe we'll just package up a couple of like extra things of like these are the rejected little Kifi bits. I think in this case I used Okaponax, and I know that one is very, very funky about melting.
You know what we should do?
What?
We should include those in like little swag bags for patrons.
Oh sure, I'm
as like here's a scent for a drawer.
Yeah.
And
I'm down with that. Like
Yeah.
like things as like
That's
little
fun.
Yeah, I'm a fan of free samples and little gifts, swag for folks, and I love making sure that we take care of our patrons. My Patreon has pretty much made 2020 a survivable period of time for me. Like actually keeps food on the table and a roof over my head, and that's great. And yeah, we're packaging stuff up as we go.
Teamwork makes the dream.
That is what they say. And I apologize if the I hope this sounds okay, because we're not mic'd over here at all. If I wanted to be like, I can put my AirPods in, but then you can't necessarily hear Lyria.
Oh. I could just pretend that I'm talking all the time. Just
that's
I'm
yeah.
evil. I'm sorry. I was gonna say when you were talking before about hand rolling the Kifi,
Yeah.
it feels to me like that's part of the magical working.
In the original stuff, like that was like actually. So in the original idea behind the ancient temple incense was each step of it was a sacrament, and was part of reconstituting the body of Osiris. And so every ingredient that you added was representative of another part of the body of Osiris that is being gathered and taken care of and prepared and then added to this end result, which is a magical working that will bring the god back to life. And then handling it, the reason Kepra is invoked is also connected to rebirth, where the scarab beetle will gather this dung ball. Back in the ancient time, they didn't necessarily realize, maybe, well, we don't know for sure that they didn't realize that, it laid its eggs in there, and the dung ball provided food for the babies to eat when they first grew up. So what you saw was basically dung beetle larvae coming to life out of this ball of shit, which became a symbol for life coming out of decay, life coming out of, yeah. So
very accurate.
yeah. So Kepra and the little ball that the beetle rolls are an integral part of that symbolism as well.
Hmm.
And although Kepra and Osiris are definitely not the same gods, there's a lot of like interesting crossover and relations drawn between. Not that there's crossover between Kepra and Osiris, but well, that gets complicated. Less Osiris and more the various sun gods, because they had Ra and they had Amun. Amun's probably one of the older ones because he starts off in a dyad with its Amun and Amuntet. So there's like the masculine and feminine aspects. But there comes a point where you have Amun Ra, because basically the folks who followed Amun as a sun god and the folks who followed Ra as a sun god got together and had an alliance and were like, our gods are the same guy now. So now it's Amun Ra. And if that sounds weird, we did it, but by we, I mean the folks whose pretty much religion and culture we've inherited in early Israelite times, there was El and Yahweh. And the cult of El and Yahweh were from northern and southern Israel, from that area. And there's a point, and I'm pretty sure it's David who unifies them. And they become unified. And as part of that unification, they merge their gods. And all of the key qualities that each god had get mushed together. So, like, one of them was definitely a storm god and, a god of high places and things like that. And then they mushed them together. And then you end up with, the biblical stuff where you have Yahweh and Elohim in the original translated to us just as God and Lord God. So as far as we're concerned, it's the same person. It didn't start off that way, though. And that's something you find, that syncretism, that melding, that merging, you find in religious systems and mythological systems around the world. Like that's
and language.
Well, no, it's often how people. It's often how people show that they are one now. They take the things that are important to them and they blend them. They merge them, and sometimes that can be a very conscious thing. It's also a fantastic and smart political maneuver. If you want
thinking that.
No, I mean, if you want to assimilate a people, you assimilate their god and say your god was our god all along. The Romans did it all the fucking time. That's why you have Jove and Jupiter, and that's actually Zeus, but it's not.
Maybe also why so many of the gods seem so like confusingly disparate. Like
Yes, and also why some of them have like how do they have like 180 different kids? Because it's actually multiple gods now under the banner of one god, but you can't really erase the children, so you just have to merge them and try to explain that. Which in the case of Zeus means that you have to have this whole narrative of how he slept around with his wife all the fucking time, even though she's the goddess of fidelity. Mythology's fun and weird and wild. Any plans for using Egyptian lore as a basis for a series of my fiction work? I'm hesitant to do so only because of the possible specter of cultural appropriation. I did work with my sometime student, now graduated certainly into her own stuff, Rebecca Kirschbaum, and there is an unpublished manuscript that is based off of a dream that I'd had that involves this locket. Well, actually, this charm and this queen, and it was called Princess of the Royal House. And we
gosh, that's not even the one that I read.
Nope. No, there's manuscripts all over this
many.
house. All over this house. I guess the answer is uncertain. If it grabs me, if it seems like it really is going to go somewhere, fiction-wise, recently a lot of what I've been writing has been short fiction, and what I would call speculative. So current, modern times in almost all cases, and with a little bit of like a Twilight Zone feel.
Yeah.
Which reminds me, I need to finish that little romance one that I wrote, that I started over the summer. I never finished it.
Oh no. No, that one was wonderful. And I think it might have fallen prey to that, like, a thing is done once you've read it aloud to people.
Yeah, it totally did. Like I got totally off track when I read.
It's
up
a
to
real
the point.
problem.
Yeah. I'll get there. I'll get back there. And then there's that haunting one with the weird possession that I want to kind of play around with.
Yeah.
Oh, the bookshelves on the front are filled already. We're waiting for like the trim and some finished stuff before I take pictures of them. But Illyria has already packed everything pretty much right back up in those bookshelves and found new stuff to put in them.
Somehow. I mean, that's why they have to be floor to ceiling, right? Like, we've only got the floor to waist high in currently.
Yeah.
And they're tied together, and they're, they're permanently, like, they're not going anywhere. But Griff is gonna come back either tomorrow or next week when he has enough bookshelves done and add the next layer.
Yeah, some of what's slowing that down is just like curing the stain in the middle of winter because it's sort of cold. And some days it's been cold, and some days it's been just not what I have come to expect for winter in Ohio. Yeah, we're just kind of hanging out, making stuff, keeping our hands busy. Keeps us from scrolling on Twitter endlessly, or at least me. Getting angrier and angrier at people being just at everything, because yesterday was a lot.
Yeah, it was.
Not going to go off on a tear about it. I really just want to focus on making my incense.
So, I know you've talked a little bit about Phoenix being rising from the ashes. Are there any, because I know for me, like, that can mean a lot of things. Can you go into more of what the symbolism means to you? Like, what does it feel like, or what's the magical intention behind it?
So I don't remember how old I was when I first heard the legend of the Phoenix. Like, it was before first grade. Disclosure on that is my mom was a college student when she had me, and she was still in college when I was tiny and she was in my life. And I was always curious about what she was doing. And as an art major, she, and also somebody who's going to school with the intention of ultimately teaching small children, she would teach me and share lots of the stuff that she was getting for lessons. So I got a lot of Greek myth growing up, and a couple of other fun things. But so the legend of the Phoenix really grabbed me because it's this. It's got Egyptian roots, but the legend as it comes down to us is Greek. And it's this migratory bird that comes back to its place of origin every 500 years. And at the end of that, like that's the end of its life cycle, it gathers branches of cinnamon and frankincense and myrrh, and like all of these different trees that have costly, sacred scents associated with them. And it builds up this nest. But the twist is that the nest is actually a funeral pyre. And so the phoenix sits upon the nest and burns itself to ashes. And in this act of self-conflagration, once it is reduced to ash. Whoops, sorry guys.
A new twist on the legend of the Phoenix.
Once it's reduced to ash, then there's an egg in the ashes of that pyre, and a new phoenix. The bird comes out renewed and reborn, and a completely, simultaneously the same old phoenix and also now a new version of it. So it's this sort of metempsychosis, it's sort of a rebirth, a rejuvenation, but also, and I think one of the things that's always grabbed me with that is there's not an inconsiderable amount of pain that goes in burning down your previous life, of just scattering the ashes, of letting it all go, and surrendering to an ending in order to have a new beginning. And that aspect of, I've been at my lowest point. I've been broken down. I've been in the funeral pyre, and I've watched my life burn to ashes, but I can still rise from that, reborn, renewed. And that's the energy that I was putting into that particular incense.
It seems like really empowering. Like both the recognition of hardship and of still being here and being alive. And having a chance to begin again and see where that goes.
Yeah, that's
neat.
yep,
I'm glad that
that's my
asked.
Phoenix magic.
Good.
Yeah, and what is on my mind? So many things are on my mind, Victoria. I mean, like, that's like asking Penny for your thoughts, and I'm just going to hand you a piggy bank. Let's see. Hello to Santa Fe.
Santa Fe.
Yeah,
That's where I want to be. I need to take you to Santa Fe.
I think I've been to Santa Fe.
Do you remember the artists' row and like all the amazing profusion of art galleries there?
Well, I should say I lusted over some silver jewelry there. I couldn't afford it at the time.
So close to like Bandelier and so many national monuments and parks, and Chaco's near there.
No, we went on this long like cross country trip when I was 17, and spent most of the time down through like the Southwest and the Grand Canyon and a bunch of other things.
The big hole in the ground. It's my favorite big hole in the ground.
Overshadowed a little bit by when we returned. Uncle Jim ended up having a heart attack. And
Yeah. Definitely takes precedence of the awesomeness of the place.
Yeah. Shake, 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 shake your Kifi. Shake, 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 shake your Kifi. And hopefully that is off key enough that it doesn't get tagged as a copyrighted thing.
Well, it's a parody because Kifi isn't the original word.
Oh, good. Okay. Well, that's arguable.
I mean, I'm not sure anybody would entertain that argument.
Who knows?
Fingers crossed.
Fork was a good idea, but now I'm trying not to spear the newly shaken kiwi with a hors d'oeuvre fork. Is that what this is? Hors d'oeuvres? Is it
I don't know.
maybe a crab? I don't know
collect-
any of that fancy stuff.
Yeah, I collect random
I was raised by wolves. I don't know.
sword utensilry, whatever you call that.
Let's see. Can we deliver to England? Yes, we can. Actually, let's see. We delivered to England, Australia. With everything that just happened with Brexit and whatnot, I know it impacts mailing things and costs and stuff. So I think we may have to like figure out like what the new cost is for mailing stuff. Yeah. But we definitely mail there to Australia.
Yeah.
Where all have we sent stuff? Like I know we've sent stuff all over the place. I think there was France.
Yeah, there have been
Norway,
New Zealand, France, Spain, Norway, the UK, Scotland. Yeah, lots of places. Canada, of course.
Canada. Hopefully that's not offensive.
Sorry, I love Canada. I think we actually haven't sent to Mexico. Which, yeah, that just occurred to me. I wonder if I even have it on. I might not have it on our list of countries we can trip to.
Well, then, perhaps
I'll have some checking the back
something
end
to
do.
consider. Illyria is the person who makes the website work and keeps up on it and does all of that stuff. Hello from Garden Grove, California. It's the tiny fork when you want to make many bites of whatever you are eating for crafting the crafting fork. Yes, it is the fork.
Oh, and I will say, you know, as much as shipping prices may be changing,
yeah,
use whatever's on the site. We will honor it.
Yeah.
And if I'm slow in updating the shipping costs, that's on me.
Yeah.
You will still get your key.
Yeah. Yeah, we're not gonna like renege on it just because we're like, oh, that's how much now? Because we're in the States, we're in a similar position where a lot of our shipping has been changing rapidly in terms of how much it costs and also how slow it fucking gets there over the past couple of months.
Pretty sure that's the longest time it's ever taken me to count to 9. I got confused when I was looking. Phoenix, it's like it just keeps regenerating. I can't tell how many balls are there.
Nope, not touching that with a 10-foot fork.
A 10-foot tiny fork.
Yeah, it's probably a good idea to get a bunch of the stuff all in one go because that kind of packages it up. But I mean, I also want to say because Lord, I do this too because I'll be like, how much more to free shipping on some of these things? And it's like, oh, I need to spend $500 more for free shipping from this wholesaler's site. Nah, no, it's not worth it. My point with that is, don't spend beyond your means. Belts are tight right now. I totally get it. And you know, if this is something that you can't afford right now, if you can see, there's quite a lot. Even though it'll show sold out up on the site at various points, what that number is showing right now is what we've prepared and what we're prepared to ship. Like we do it in batches of each Kifi so that we don't oversell, because we're still working on estimating how many pieces come out of a batch.
So experimental. I'm finally getting warm.
Yeah, it's toasty in here.
Now I can be red too.
Okay. And show off the Lord of the Rings tattoos.
Ooh, yeah. That's what I'm doing.
Aloha to Maui. Hello, hello.
Ooh, hello.
Yep, we're making balls. I've got so many balls. We've got the Kifi balls of them all.
Oh no.
You know that song, right?
I'm not going to say yes or no, but I am going to say that
I can't sing it. Yeah,
this is the kind of ball that we can have in a time of social distancing.
Oh, okay.
No. It's not quite the grand social event of the season.
I have something that Illyria refers to as jingle brain, which is to say that like I have a phonographic memory on top of everything else. Like I remember little ditties and songs and fucking television jingles from the 70s.
But it's never the ones that like are super pretty.
Oh no, it's
always
just
ridiculous.
It's ridiculous, repetitive.
Yeah.
Like when I say jingles,
have
I mean,
an earworm.
Yes. Yeah. Well, earworm. That shit's in my brain 24/7. It is a soundtrack. Like various things will like trigger it with a word or a phrase, and then I've just got music playing in my head that I never really asked for.
And then you share it.
Well, I mean, why not share the pain? That's what spouses are for, right? Torturing one another. No, share the pain.
Share the love?
I mean, we can share the love too.
Okay.
Let's see. Are they always bouncing through? Yeah. Let's see. Miss seeing everybody in person. The Santoris and Lenore and the Princess and Nissa and like all my local folks and then my not so local folks. We have this big old house. There are so many beds and they just seem completely excessive at this point because they're here for people who are visiting and there's just empty beds everywhere. Truth. Hello to Texas. Whereabouts generally in Texas? My mom lived outside of Munster in a tiny little town called St. Joe, or at least that was on her address. She was way the fuck outside of St. Joe too. She lived in the middle of nowhere. We are hoping to make people's day better. I don't know about you guys, but yesterday was a little overwhelming. Today is a little infuriating, and it's just nothing we can directly do much about beyond scream into the void on the internet, and I don't know that that's very good for my blood pressure, so we're making Kifi.
Yep. I know it's not good for mine.
I mean, mine's low enough on a good day that
well, that's fair.
Actually getting agitated isn't a terrible
Oh
thing.
no! Are we saying it would be good for our blood pressure?
Probably.
We're gonna have to come up with a better,
okay,
like, a more genuine reason.
My peace of mind, my digestion.
Yes.
My poor cat who gets distressed when I am that pissed off at anything.
Oh God. Oh, you're worried about the cat getting stripped.
I mean, you can talk to me and like resolve like how you're feeling. The cat can't. I can't tell the cat, humans are being stupid again, dear cat. This is why I can't sit still with you in my lap. This is why I'm ranting and gesticulating wildly at my screen and cursing people down to the next 5 generations of their families. I wouldn't actually do that. I don't blame children for dumb parents. Or bad parents. I mean, I'm a child of bad parents, so, or at least my grandmother. If you caught that sort of a very revelatory thing on Twitter, which I'm still like, oh, I shared that.
Yeah. I have to say, I'm really proud of you for sharing more of that really hard stuff. I feel like, I mean, having obviously gotten to know you as a partner,
Yeah.
like I know a good deal of some shit that you've been through, and I feel like, I mean, to me, that makes it all the more incredible that you have the patience with people that you do. Like, that you're not just, you know, at the first sign of someone, like, being pushy or stepping outside the bounds. Like, that you're not like, just like, fuck you, go away, nuke it to the end of the world.
What was a little inspirational for that was J. Michael Straczynski's book, Becoming Superman.
Oh my God, yeah.
Where he just, like, because the thing is like, when you actually talk about those experiences, you put them out in the world, and you see them on paper, you're like, that's some fucked up shit. Like, holy crap, is that nobody's gonna believe that shit like that happens. But the thing is it happens all the time. So somewhere out there's somebody who's in the middle of that right now.
Yes.
Going, it can't be this bad. This can't actually be happening.
Am I actually crazy?
It must be my imagination. It must be me making, like, misunderstanding what they're doing the way that they're telling me. So yeah, and there's been a lot of people who responded to that post with that same reason, which is why I'm considering. There was a dude who's got a podcast. He's a kinkster, actually. We have a lot of kinky friends in common. And he's got like a sort of revelatory tell-all, like the stories that you normally wouldn't tell out. Almost not so much like secret shame, but like the kind of stuff that you normally only tell close friends in certain circumstances. And he read that thread and he's like, hey, this is I would love to have this on my show. And I'm like, well, I will look into your show because I'm not sure that I would be as good saying it out loud with my mouth words as I am at saying it in words on a paper. Yeah. They're very different states of mind for me, but like I could probably share it. We'll see.
Yeah, I think, I mean, for exactly the reason that you just pointed at, I think it would be a really powerful story to share. But I also, like, if it's distressing to go back and think about it, no, I also would say, like,
no, I've got a pretty dispassionate, like, I cannot stress enough that for me, closure, like I had spent some time going, you know, I watched my mom live her entire life and go to her deathbed hoping that there would be some closure, some resolution, some way of getting her own mother to realize like what she had done and all of that. And mom died like just still hoping for it and just not seeing that that was just simply never going to happen. Graham wasn't capable.
If she had been capable, I think she still would have chosen not to give.
Well, and that's the other thing, is like a person needs to want to change. But in my case, when Graham finally died on Christmas Day several years ago, and a family member who I barely remember what their name is, it's a long extended family and I don't keep in contact with much of any of them. Somebody called to let me know. And they were like, are you sitting down? Like it was going to be some horrible thing. But I was just like, huh. That very neatly removes any possible hope that there could ever be a conversation. I know that there won't be any possible hope that there just isn't, and that's fine. Okay, cool. I can move on with my life. It's great. And it also removed the fact that one of the reasons that I cut ties with the rest of the family was I was sick and tired of people telling me that I needed to like forgive and forget and like get back in with her and have a relationship with her. And I'm like, I will sooner hug a dog that I know is rabid. The results will be about the same.
Yeah. No, I am incredibly grateful to my mom's family for
Oh, you got a fantastic family. It's awesome.
for helping me like feel completely okay with cutting ties with my mom's ex-partner.
Yeah.
Because there was some shit that happened there.
Yeah.
Some of it at my mom's funeral. I was not in a good headspace to deal with that. And they just stepped in and like made sure we were separated.
People get really shitty at funerals.
And
at deaths. No, I had a friend who his dad had leukemia. And I mean, long story short, he's there at the bedside in the hospital with his dad. Sorry, it's dry in here. And his sister, who was just a piece of work, showed up with the current boyfriend. And they are standing on either sides of the dad as the dad has just expired. And the sister showed up just to try to browbeat her father into giving her stuff. And it literally, she takes a swing at her brother over her father's still warm corpse. Like a fist fight breaks out over the dead guy. Over, of all things, a pickup truck. Yeah. And that's not like the most ridiculous. Like people are weird with death. Some people are just very deeply broken people, and yeah. Anyway, so that's some grim stuff. I apologize if that's yeah.
I do think there's also, if there's anything to be gained out of situations like that, it's probably in the seeing how other people lash out when they're in pain.
Yeah.
Especially when they deny themselves healthy ways to like work through that pain. Like it's not pretty or comfortable to talk about going to therapy and like working through that slow, hard bullshit that we all have. But it is one of the kindest things that I think anyone can do for themselves and for anybody else, is taking the time to like make sure that doesn't spill out over, a parent's still warm corpse. It's all of our shit to deal with.
Yes. That was actually, I think, the biggest lesson for me was I used to think that like somehow if I only understood what their damage was, I could help heal it. If I only understood like why they were like that, I could find some way to work with it or work around it. And it was a great revelation when I hit the point, I was like, their shit is theirs to fix. Like that's their responsibility. Like they're 20, 30, 40 years older than me. And that is on them. The fact that they haven't dealt with it yet and it is fucking me up is on them. I'm responsible for trying to fix their broken ass shit. That is a choice they have made. So anyway.
It's clumsy as fuck.
Sock puppets out the car windows. I love your family. My family just gets silly over death. We have a family tradition of having sock puppets out of the car windows on the way from the service to the cemetery. I think Jim Henson would approve.
Oh, that's marvelous.
That's fantastic. Oh, there's new people coming into the stream, so a brief introduction. We're escaping the news by doing busy work. You see, the stuff here is an ancient temple incense called Kapet, Kupar, or Kifi, Kyphi. You will probably most commonly see it referred to as Kifi. It is made from a recipe that is several thousand years old. I use as my base the recipe that appears on the walls of the temple at Edfu in Egypt, because mainly that one actually has measurements and proportions. There are older recipes that exist and have come down to us over time, but not all of them give you an idea of like 3 parts of this, 4 parts of that, boil it this long. The one on the walls of Edfu are in the laboratory room where they were probably actually making the stuff. And so it's like this handy dandy, like, here's your recipe card, chiseled right into the wall in front of you.
Hard to miss.
Yeah, hard to miss. And so I started recreating this and on this whole journey of like researching the ingredients, tracking some of them down, reading a bunch of scholarship because a couple of the ingredients were not 100% sure of the translation, so there's all this debate about it. And started all that in 2019. It's an incense that is crafted over 10 to 15 days. and then boiled down in a kind of grueling process that can take anywhere between 3 and 7 hours, where you are just over this copper pot constantly stirring it. And then it has to cure for, but usually between 3 to 6 months, depending on how a number of factors, including how much humidity is in where you live. When I make batches in the summer, they take a lot longer to cure because I live in a part of Ohio that is quite humid due to proximity to Lake Erie. Anyway, so hello to Valley Spirit Communications. It is a soft incense, so it's not a type of incense that we're used to working with or burning, which is to say that you can't just like light a charcoal and stick it on. It has
Well,
I mean, you could.
It just doesn't smell good.
Yeah, you could try, but it's not going to smell very great. It's got a base of dried fruit and honey and wine. And that very high sugar content means that it needs to kind of be treated almost like a wax melt. So you put it over a burner that has, ideally, a control that lets you measure between, and I'm going to give this in Fahrenheit, I apologize, translating into Celsius, I'm not great, between about 150 Fahrenheit at the very low end to about 190. I wouldn't go over 190 Fahrenheit. There are burners that allow for that. They are electric. They plug in the wall, as good electric appliances do. The simplest and least expensive, they're called Bakur burners, Bakhor, do not have a dial where you can set the temperature, and they tend to run on the hotter side, closer to 200 degrees, which means that you put it on there, and there will be a point where the smell changes and you want to take it off. But they are also a fair number of burners that are available between $40 and $70, depending on how fancy you want to get, that have the dial and let you basically dial in how long you and how hot you want these things to be. You can probably get away with not a wax melt burner because they're a little bit too low, because this doesn't catch on fire the way like a wax melt would. But if you have like one of those little soapstone things that you put a tea light in the bottom, and it's got like a little bowl, if you put a liner in that, tinfoil or whatever, I've heard people have a pretty good result with that. I'm going to go get a drink.
If you want some of that, you're welcome to.
Oh.
I brought it.
It's really dry up here. It's good for the Kifi, it's bad for my throat.
It's good for your little desert rat over here. I feel great.
That's great. I'm expiring here.
Oh no. I'll go get some more water.
Anyway, if the only thing you have to burn it on is a charcoal, what a couple of people who've done this, and I haven't tried this myself, so full caveat, is to light the self-lighting charcoal, put it on its little safe thing. It'll get really, really red hot. You want to let it burn long enough that it has a good bit of ash on it, so it's started to cool off, but it's still hot. And then you can get away with the Kifi on it. I would still put a little tin foil over it. And actually, anything that you use Kifi on, you want some tin foil or something on it because it is very, very sticky. It is heavy in the resin, and with the wine and the honey and the fruit, like it's just a goopy mess once it melts on stuff.
Man, this is such a different texture.
Yes.
Wow.
So this one, I won't get sidetracked just yet. But,
Okay, sorry.
Oh yeah, Kifi has a second life. So once you've heated it up and you've let it waft out its fragrance, there's a point where it gets darker and hard. Looks like it's got little bubbles and stuff in it. And don't throw it out. Take it off the heat, let it cool down, break it up. In that form, you can burn it directly on a charcoal. It will produce a fair amount of smoke. So FYI with that, If you are just warming it to release it, it doesn't produce much smoke at all. So that's really handy if, like me, you've got asthma and breathing problems. Once you are burning spent Kifi, the stuff that's been hardened in the heat, it changes the scent a little bit. You get a lot more of the frankincense and the myrrh and a little bit less of the subtled layers of scent that are in like the original version. You can also use the broken up spent Kifi in spell bottles, in spell charms. You can take it and sprinkle it across like the threshold of your door. If you don't even ever burn the Kifi, it was used in little sachets in closets and whatnot to add a fresh scent to clothes. It was used as a breath freshener. I don't recommend eating it because the ancient Egyptians had a very, very different criteria for what was safe to eat than the FDA. Although technically it's all non-toxic stuff. It was also used as a medicine. One of the useful things that I found with it is, a little breathable like muslin thing of it or decorative thing, and put it in a drawer, put it in the box that you have your tarot cards or your ritual tools to sort of infuse them with the scent. And that gives you like the maximum use of this because it's made with some very, very costly ingredients. It is rare and precious. And that's to say nothing about the amount of time and hours that go into it. Anywho, yeah, recycling the little tea light aluminum cups would be fantastic. That's brilliant. I know that there's several places that sell like, they kind of look like abbreviated cupcake tins, but they're for burning Bakur and resin and stuff. But treat it like hookah tobacco. Yes, actually, Jessica, that is, yes. So yeah, tin foil. And I haven't tried it in a hookah. I'm not sure what, you know what, if somebody wants to experiment with that, get back to me and let me know how it works. Like I said, it is non-toxic, but different levels of what's okay in the ancient world than in now. It started, I mean, it's still a labor of love. Like, this is not a simple or easy thing to make. And like, I haven't sat down and like fully crunched the numbers for the ingredients, plus the packaging, plus the time, because I frankly don't want to see it. It's not going to be pretty. I honestly just went up on Etsy, saw who else was selling Kifi, and tried to stay in basically the range that they sell in, because I'm still going to be making it one way or the other. Several of the ingredients, and also if you want to try your hand at it yourself, I have all of the ingredients and recipes up on the website, so you don't have to buy it from me. I will say each of these is a spell. There's a lot of work and neat stuff that's gone into it. But if you want to try your hand, pop on over on the website, and I've got the base recipe with all of the measurements and whatnot. And that is drawn from a book called Sacred Luxuries by Lise, Lise, Maniche, Manniche. So you can start there with your research. It'll spiral out. And although that book is technically out of print, there are still copies of it that are available out in the world. Have a good lunch, dinner, or breakfast, Hetty. Maybe don't inhale. Yeah, I don't know. It is an interesting thing, and the other thing is like I'm here and I'm like rolling it into little pea-sized balls, but that you don't have to necessarily use this whole piece. I recommend like pinch off about half of that, especially if you are experimenting with like what is the optimal temperature and the optimal way to burn it for you. Pinch off a little bit, flatten it, and put it on whatever surface you are going to be working with. A hot plate also works. So if you've got like a little electric burner or something, again, make sure there's some tin foil between it and what you're burning it on, because you will never clean this up otherwise. Like, it will never come off. Even if you get all the goo, it'll be stained. The base, in addition to dried fruit, which is typically raisins, figs, and or dates, and various mixes thereof, honey, wine, frankincense, myrrh, gum mastic. There's a little bit of mint, not like spearmint or peppermint, but what's known as Egyptian mint. Sometimes I will use cat mint in place of that because Egyptian mint is a very mild mint. It doesn't have like that really sharp menthol that we're used to. Something that is recorded as aspalathos and was probably, this is one of the debated, and this is the likeliest thing it is, the stuff that is currently marketed as honeybush rubose. So the related thing to African redbush. What are lemongrass, cyperus grass root, which was a real fun thing to try to find. You can substitute tiger nuts, which are in fact not a nut, but they've become a big thing for some paleo people. And so you can find ground tiger nut sold as tiger nut flour. Because cyperus grass, it's nut sedge. And Cyperus rotundus is the scientific term. And it's a little tricky to find, even though it's still used in like Ayurvedic medicine. You can find it in some Chinese medicine shops. That one's trickier to find and hard to track down. Not expensive if you can find it. Trying to remember how much it was, maybe $20 a pound or so.
Have you talked at all while I've been gone about the trickiness trying to figure out from translation what different?
Oh well, I mean, my
Sorry.
favorite one was pecker, or pecker. There's a thing that is transliterated from the hieroglyphs as Peker, and to put it simply, nobody really knows what the fuck it's supposed to be. Like every scholar and academician just seems to want to interpret it as something else. There's not a whole lot of clues in the manuscripts. It seems to have been very important to the Kifi. If you follow the way that they write the ingredient list, where it falls is suggestive of something that is probably woodsy, probably a wood or a wood powder, but there's no guarantee of that. So there are academic papers that suggest that this stuff was hash. I read one that suggested it was opium, based on the fact that Kifi was supposed to have this sort of visionary effect, that you burned it at night and it opened wide the gates of dream, and it gave you this sort of like weird, heady, almost euphoric feel. And so like this particular guy was like, well, clearly there's a narcotic in there. I'm not sure that there's merit to that. I think in reading that description comes from Plutarch, who is reporting, basically, think of it like a travel log. He went down to Egypt and he hung out with the priests in the temple, and he was like, hey, dudes, what are you doing? And what's this incense that you burn in the morning, and the stuff that you burn in the noon, and the stuff that you burn at night? Why does it have all this weird stuff that you associate with it? So he's just reporting what they told him. And I think that they're talking, I think they're talking more sacramental, mystical than anything else, because they're talking about making it as an offering, using it to communicate with spirits and the gods. And the idea that it opens the gates of dream is something that would be lost on us. But at that time, the significance of dreams and dreaming, you would typically incubate dreams, like actively dream, in order to seek communication with spirits and the gods. Like it was a regular and accepted route for communicating with the other world.
Would Plutarch have known that about that other culture?
He should. He sort of should. He should have to some extent. Mm-hmm. But he was also of that school of like Greeks that had started to get kind of more. I don't want to say skeptical, but like it kind of stepped away from.
I was going to say literalist.
Yeah, actually maybe. And it's also all of that is. He goes down, they tell him, he writes it, we're translating it from Greek, so there's certainly stuff that gets lost in translation.
Yeah.
So anyway, there are some words that look like the hieroglyphs for Peker. Complicated reasons why Not all words and hieroglyphs look the same. I won't go into that. That's a whole presentation by itself. But long story short, we know that Kifi had sacred associations with Osiris and with reconstituting the body of Osiris. And we know that the sycamore fig, a tree that is indigenous to that area, played a significant mythological role in the whole story of Isis and Osiris and the dismemberment of the king, to the point where the majority of the sarcophagi, the wooden coffins that come down to us from Egypt, were made from sycamore fig. They were made from the wood of that tree. It's also a tree, it's unique, it's got all kinds of associations out there. The leaves, the fruit, and the wood were used in different aspects of food, perfumery, and whatnot. And the word for peker, several of the symbols in the hieroglyph are very, very similar. And actually, well, several of them are identical to the symbols in the word for sycamore, or the stand of sycamore trees that are outside of the tomb of Osiris. So I tracked that down. I compared the two, and I was like, I'm pretty sure that this is supposed to be sycamore fig wood. And it works really well, but it's a bitch to get a hold of. When in doubt, you can just use cedar wood. It doesn't have the same mystical properties, but it has the same effect of being a binder that sort of like breaks up, and because if this is lots and lots of resin, you need some wood and some plant matter in it, on top of the fruit and whatnot, to get it mass and to make it something that does dry up so that you can shape it and it's not just gum. A couple of other things that I find a little weird in it, pine nuts are in the original recipe. And those are one of the ones that it's not disputed. Like everybody's like, yeah, they just mean straight up pine nuts. Okay. Cedar, what else? Lemongrass, cyperus root, sweet flag, calamus root, which is fixative. There's a couple of recipes that have labdanum or galbanum, which are resins from, in the case of labdanum, it's a resin from the rock rose. It's still used widely in perfumery as a base note and a fixative. It's all fun stuff. Anyway, so that's me, and you can find all that stuff on my website. Like, there'll probably be a book that comes out of this at some point. I'm mostly just taking a whole bunch of notes and sticking them up where you can see them. So yeah, it's not just me making a crappy thing. Like I can't do anything that doesn't involve a crap ton of research.
And a crap ton of magic.
Well, okay, yeah. I mean, magic,
like
research.
Whole...
Yeah, that's my wheelhouse. That's my fun place.
That milky pot.
Yeah, I like making stuff. I like it to have significance and there to be magic in it, and the act of making is magic, and knowing exactly like all the aspects of it. So then researching it and making sure that, you know, what I'm reading in this one book is actually how it's supposed to be, because never trust just one book, not even mine. So yeah, having fun, getting sticky.
Yeah, happy anniversary.
Yeah, trying to make these a little bit bigger, because you were right. Well, because this one has a very different texture, and let me get back to that. The reason why that has a very different texture was, so I was starting to wonder, in taking the measurements from the Edfu temple, I had to convert measurements that were like literally like 3 pounds of dried fruit and 3 pounds. I think it's like I forget how many liters of frankincense and whatnot it is. So I had to convert that all down and then like divide it into what is a workable, produced in the kitchen amount. And I started to wonder if I'd gotten off just a little bit with resin to fruit.
Right.
So for this one, for this one specifically, I upped the resin, I cut down the fruit just by like, I wrote it down in my notes what it was. Given the stiffness of this one and how quickly it cured, I think I will revise it further for the next batch, and basically do half of the changes that I made.
I actually do have a question.
Yeah.
So, do you plan to make the same blends again, or are they always going to be different ingredients and a different magical intent?
I mean, right now I'm still in I'm playing with stuff, so
Yeah.
I enjoy. It's so labor intensive when I have a new idea of like I want to try it like this.
Yeah.
I end up making
You want
a
to
new
make a
thing.
batch.
But I mean, I wrote down the recipes for all of these with the intent of at some point I will make them again. I mean, knowing that much like winemaking, the end result is very dependent on the quality of the stuff that went into it. What was the growing season? How was it harvested? All of that, like,
Yeah.
So they will never be 100% identical.
I will say, I think slightly smaller might be better for some of these.
Yeah.
Because one thing that people had mentioned was they wanted to be able to burn smaller amounts sometimes, and having only larger balls doesn't necessarily make that easy.
Okay. I mean, we could also. I mean, so with that one, cutting it into squares is going to be nearly impossible.
Yeah.
I mean, that little doober there next to it, the bladed bit, like I tried to use it to cut the Kifi. I can do it over here on that one. I'm just like, oh, no, that's not going to work.
Well, this is going to be fun. I'm surprised your fingers aren't. Are your fingers torn up?
No.
Oh.
That one tears your fingers up because it is a lot of...
Well, that's what I was asking about.
Oh.
From yesterday.
Oh, yeah, a little bit. But it's the same fingers that I, like, have really huge writing calluses on. I mean, like
heretofore unknown.
No, seriously, like my middle finger, if you can see like the way it's weirdly bumped out, like that is a writing callus that I have had since I was teeny. Have I tasted it prior to adding all the various herbs? The base, you know what, I haven't, but I probably should because it's.
Did you?
Well, I mean, I can't. So here's the trick. I'm allergic to alcohol. I can't drink wine. Liquor, like any of it, and it's not like, oh, I get red in the face. Like it's not that. Like the chemical of alcohol, I have a very strong and immediate histamine response to that borders on anaphylaxis. It's a thing. It's not so fun. So the mix of like the honey and the wine and the thing, and also so it's not like you put the honey and the wine and the fruit all in a bowl all at once. So you chop the fruit up and you mash it, and you have that, and you add about half a cup of wine, and you let it sit, and then you add your first ingredient, and then you cover it with muslin cloth, and all of this is in this big copper pot that is the witchiest looking fucking cauldron in my house, and then you let it sit overnight, and then ideally the next day at around the same time, you grind up whatever the next ingredient is. And then you add that at the same time, and you mix it up, and you let it sit again, and you let it soak in that half cup of wine. And over those first couple of days, you add like additional half cups of wine up to the maximum for the recipe. Red wine is recommended, sweet red. So we don't necessarily think of Egypt as a country that produces a lot of wine, but in the ancient world, they were known for their very sweet red wines. Finding a sweet red is a pain in the butt, as I found. But I've also experimented with different types of reds. Additionally, the original recipe seems to be half wine made out of grapes and half wine made out of dates. And that is absolutely impossible for me to get in the States. I have tried. I briefly considered making it myself because I used to brew mead, and then I just kind of accepted that was maybe going a little too far down the crafter rabbit hole.
That is pretty far down the rabbit hole.
But there is, in fact, a vintage of date wine that is purchasable, or at least shows up on the website. One winery on a kibbutz Is that how you pronounce that? In Israel. But they did not, at last check, ship to the United States, so out of luck.
No.
Yeah, the copper pot, I ended up having, like, so finding an unlined copper pot, you're not really supposed to cook in unlined copper pots because it does, there's a chemical reaction that happens, it gets into your food, it's not really something you should be eating, especially with any food that has an acidic content to it. Now, you do use copper unlined for certain points in candy making and working with sugar and meringues. So there are very, very fancy French pots by a company named Mauviel, and they are as pricey as you would expect, where you make like your fancy little like meringues and whatnot in the copper pot, because it has an interesting effect on the egg whites as well as the sugar. Okay, as I learned in trying to find unlined copper pots, an unlined copper pot with a flat bottom is also used for a couple of Italian dishes, particularly risotto, because they're at a very low heat. It's got a lot to do with both the heat convection, but also the chemical reaction. And so, long story short, I priced out Mauviel pots of the size that I needed, and I stumbled on this multi-generational, like traditional family coppersmith website that was all in Italian, and they're in Italy, but they were the best price for what I needed. It was handmade. It was made in the style that they'd been making for multiple generations. So I have this enormous fancy copper pot made by Italian metalsmiths, who, as it turns out, actually also make alchemy tools like alembics and shit, which I've resisted the urge to pick up because I also don't want to go so far down the crafter rabbit hole that I am now making my own essential oils because I've already taken up enough of the house, as Illyria can attest.
That's very true. Yeah, that copper pot features on some of the YouTube videos that we have up on the michellebelanger.com/incense. There's like 5 2+ hour long videos of various points in the process of making some of these batches of Kifi. There's a lot of like long, slow work involved. I actually really like it. It feels very meditative or contemplative.
It is. It is. Also, why I resist trying to figure out like how many man hours, how many people hours, how many intersex person hours went into making this Kifi.
Many.
A lot.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe it's enough. Covered in sticky stuff now.
Oh no.
Oh, and I can make wine in the Instapot. Huh.
Whoa.
Huh.
That's a terrifying idea.
I'm not. Huh. I'm not sure if I'm there yet. So back when I used to make mead, we get like those huge glass jars that usually water ships in, and they go in the coolers. So they've got like the thing here and big whatnot, like 5 gallon whatever, and then you put in a water lock and all of that stuff. My favorite mead that I made that I could never reproduce, so I think I did something right accidentally, was this mead that was vanilla, and then I had harvested all of the rose petals from my rose garden in Hinckley, and so it was red and pink rose petals in this mead, and it came out sweet and bright and effervescent with just a hint of rose and also like the fruitiness of like thick rose petals. And it turned into the gift that I gave to all of my friends for like bridal showers, and pretty much if they were celebrating anything, I was just like, here, have my cool mead. Drink it and tell me what it tastes like.
That sounds delicious.
But and then I've considered doing the mead brewing again, but that takes up also a lot of space. And my least favorite part about it is that sort of like yeasty smell that happens as it's brewing and bubbling out of the water lock.
Yeah.
And we don't have a good place for that to be a thing at this point. Like the house is taken up with books, cats, and Kifi. And also a room full of games.
Accurate.
Yeah.
Some of it we should play at some point.
Oh, I need to lead you through the introduction to the new tabletop game.
This is true.
I mentioned it on Twitter, and people were like, "You DM?" And I'm like, "Oh, honey."
Only for what, not 30 years? Is that about right?
I started. I am going to be 48.
Oh.
I started playing D&D when I was 10
Yes.
in 4th grade. So
38 years.
Yeah, I'm going on 40 years of being a fucking gamer.
Now that's hot.
Yeah. Although somebody had asked if I had DM'd that first game, and I was like, no, actually, Kevin Drees, I still remember, who my first DM was. Kevin Drees got to DM. I also remember it partly because I really wanted to, and he won the coin flip.
Oh. That's an appropriate way to decide who gets to DM, though.
Well, I mean, it's a pretty good indication because it was the smart kids class.
Mm-hmm.
And gifted students, whatever the fuck they called us in the early 80s. Was it? Yeah, that would have been 81 maybe. If I'm 10, it would have been 82, 83. I can do math. I swear.
That was the year I was born.
That's cool. I have been gaming as long as you have been drawing breath.
Wow.
There's some context for you.
So, am I as good at being alive as you are at DMing?
I don't know. You have to tell me because, like, you get to figure out if I'm a good DM or not. I mean, it's really just telling a story and allowing your characters, the players, to also tell the story with you. So it's like this really cool co-creation with the added random element occasionally of dice, so that you aren't just deciding. You know, always that everything is always going to go your way.
Yeah. From what I have seen so far, you're an excellent DM.
It's fun. I love the world building. I still need to make a map of the tavern you guys are going to find yourselves in for a while.
You know what I like?
Tales from the Floating Vagabond. Yes, awesome stuff. and interesting that you mentioned that because I've got them starting off at basically a tavern between worlds. Yes, that's what those papers are for.
Yeah, I have figured it out. Is it time for a song and dance?
Well, I can't because anything that I would sing off the top of my head is probably going to hit YouTube or somebody's algorithm for being copyrighted, including anything I've written myself. And then, I mean, we all know how much pain in the ass it is to like have poor Christine Philippak then try to argue with BMI or whoever. That's the one thing they don't tell you about stuff like that when you sign with a publisher or you sign with a CD and you get your stuff published and it's out there and it's copyrighted or whatever. Although technically you own the copyright and it's technically your work, you're not always the person in control of the legal aspect of that. So you sometimes still have to get permission from the distributor or the publisher to do anything with your work. It's very aggravating.
Not to mention the whole difficulty of rights reverting to you.
Oh fuck yeah! Don't
in
even
the
get me
digital
on.
age.
Fucking don't even get me going on that. I would love to give you all some audiobooks of some of my earlier books. I am afraid that Satan will be having a snowball fight with Beelzebub before that happens. Which just made me go down a weird brain rabbit hole of like, okay, so if climate change is making things hotter for us, does that mean climate change sort of by default in a weird sort of like polar opposite way? Would it mean that it's always going to get colder in hell?
So there's a wonderful somewhere on the internet.
Of course.
An amazing
Somewhere on the
someone's-
internet.
Someone's like high school paper. There was an extra credit question about like whether hell was freezing over and exothermic stuff and endothermic stuff, and they went all
They went
out.
there.
Like they went on a whole essay tear about like how like arguing for one or the other. I don't remember which it was. It's been like 15 years since I read it, but it was amazing. If anybody can find it, it's worth finding.
Oh.
I think it was taking like common phrases and saying, well, if this is true, then here's what's going on in hell. And conversely,
Probably stuff out of Milton at that point.
I have to find this and show it to you if nobody
Yeah.
else does.
No light but darkness visible.
Should we go inside so I can?
Yeah, sure. Let me get the little doobers out of here. I'm probably
Yeah,
gonna
the
have to
doobers.
get more
Mm.
crushed dragon's blood. I think I have crushed dragon's blood already ready. Alright, switch.
Switcheroo.
We just
Oh,
have
no, I'm complete. I'm gone.
that's why I was sort of like trying to like poke my head in every once in a while, because sometimes I think I was just straight off frame. We can fix that easily.
That's true. That's very true.
Yep. Hey, look. Do, 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 do. Hey, look. There we
Now
go.
I look even
Fixed.
shorter. It's magical. Nine. 9.
That's why.
Really?
Yes. Because I would remember it. 9? Yes.
Welcome to the mighty 9.
Pretty sure that is something that anybody would yell at us for using. Probably not.
It's so good.
They're actually so good with like fan art and stuff that I'm sure that's not a thing at all.
Yay.
My ugly children over here. One of these is just like a straight up like it's a whole chunk of I'm not even sure what. So a couple of the frankincense things that I get come with chunks of tree, like little bits of wood and whatnot from where they're harvested. And I try to catch them or grind them down, but they don't always make it. And then I find them the hard way when I'm rolling a Kifi ball and I get stabbed in the finger with a sliver from a frankincense tree. Ouch. Yeah. Okay, these are all full down here?
Yeah.
I'm just gonna scoop that over there so I don't kick it. Because I could, and I might. And I can be awkward like that. Yep, that's another chunk.
Another ugly child.
Well, it's stabby. Wait. Oh, the nerve damage on my feet is being weird because the bottom of this foot has like just some whole patches that don't feel the carpet right now.
That might be a sign that it's a good time to sit down for a little. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean,
You've got a lot done.
I have so much neuropathy from like all of the early part of the stuff that it's just an adventure. It just feels weird today. Or weirder than usual. Generally, if I'm wiggling a lot, it's because something feels strange and I'm trying to ignore it. Yeah, for the I'm not trying to bitch. I had a heart defect when I was little. I had a life expectancy of 5. I did not get the circulation that I was supposed to get, especially in my legs. I learned after the fact I'm very lucky I have all my toes.
I'm very glad you have all your toes.
Yeah, toes are important. They're good for walking. But I do have a lot of nerve damage in multiple places. And that's just that. But I'm alive, so here we are.
Boy, am I glad you're alive.
Must have been on fire the last 2 days. Yeah. Let's see. Somebody found the essay Leary was referring to.
You did?
It was Cass.
Is it still good?
It was Cass, of course. That's fantastic.
Oh.
Nicole asks, what's going on here? So, hello, welcome. I am, this is Michelle Belanger, and my lovely partner, Illyria. We are rolling Kifi, which is an ancient temple incense, handmade. Long, laborious process. If you pop over on my website, michellebelanger.com/incense, you can read a ton of stuff about it, maybe more than you ever wanted to know. I make it, I sell it, and this is the final process of rolling it into little usable balls, dusting it in some benzoin or dragon's blood or whatever else is appropriate to that particular blend, and packaging it up and sending it into the world. Yeah, the Bakur burners are probably the best. So in learning about Kifi, I discovered like a whole other section of types of incense. So like, you know, I was, you know, born and raised in the Midwest. I was in college in the late 80s and early 90s, and you know, my introduction to incense was like Nag Champa sticks and Ganesh cones that you could buy at the Kmart down the street. And for the longest time, like, that was what incense was. It was either punk sticks or incense cones. And then I met pagans and Wiccans and discovered that there was loose incense that you burnt on a charcoal, and that was cool. Sometimes had way too much smoke, and sometimes just smelled really weird. So nobody told me that there's this incense style called Bakur, Bakhoor. It is still used widely throughout the Middle East. It is the closest in production and the way that it's made to this ancient temple incense that was used throughout the ancient Mediterranean. Bakur is very heavy with resins. It's very tightly packed. There's a lot of ground woods, rare and precious, like sandalwood, oud wood, which is sometimes also known as aloes wood or agar wood, ginkgo if it's in Japanese. And so it comes in like these little kind of pellets, and it's also saturated with essential oils and stuff. So you don't light it on fire. It's not a self-lighting incense at all. You burn it, smolder it really, over a Bakur burner, which you can have one where you put in a charcoal and you kind of have like a little thing over the charcoal, and the charcoal is the source of the heat, but you can't control how hot that gets. And these things are so packed with resin and other essential oils that you want to release the scent slowly, and you don't want to scorch it, which means thinking of it a little bit more like a wax melt, where you're not trying to burn it or light it on fire, you're trying to heat it up to slowly release the scent. It produces some smoke, but not nearly as much as taking loose incense and dumping it on a charcoal, or lighting an incense stick, or lighting a cone. And discovering that A, Bakur existed, and B, there is a whole section of like Bakur burners and things in different styles, different, like, you know, ranging from like $20 to like super fancy $125 ones. And they are made expressly for this type of incense. Oh, can y'all see my burner at some point? I can, if you're okay. Actually, if it was just me, I wouldn't run down. But give me a second. I'll bring a couple of the ones that I've got.
Hang on.
What?
You're the one talking.
That's
Where's
okay.
your burner?
Well, there's several. Where's the?
Is it basement or first floor? That's all I need.
first, check in the king bedroom, because I think
Oh,
one of
yeah.
them is in there because we were
Okay.
airing it out with the frankincense.
That's right.
There's another one. There's 2 or 3 of them in the basement, and I'm not sure where we've moved them in relation to the
I'll
shelves.
see if I can get the first one.
Okay. Hold that thought. There are some other burners that you can use that are basically powered by a tea light. And so you've got like a little fat bellied thing that almost looks like a teeny chimenea. And it's got a hole at the top, and you put a little kind of cup thing in the hole. Sometimes they're carved in a soapstone. Sometimes they're made out of like punched metal in a kind of Moroccan style. And you light the tea light, and the tea light heats up the little cup. And you've got your incense or whatever it is you're heating up. Not wax melts in this case. It will heat them up too much, and that is a fire hazard. And you put it in a little bit of like lined aluminum foil, and it releases the scent. A little bit like a double boil, yeah. So what I've been, again, I'm really big into research, and I am fascinated with the authenticity of like recreating this stuff that is older than Christianity by about 1,000 years. If you look at some of the bas-reliefs and paintings on Egyptian tombs, you can see people in the process of making offerings of incense. And in several cases, we know that what they're offering is Kifi. So they've got like these little balls, and they've got this, it almost looks like a pipe. So it's got like a long bit that you hold, and it's got a little cup at the end. And in true Egyptian fashion, in several of the cases, the arm of it is carved to look like an offering hand, which is simultaneously like an arm, but also it means literally offering. So it's kind of like it says what it's doing. And in the upturned hand, it holds that little cup. Now, we don't have like schematics or anything for this, but the working theory is that a coal would go into the base of that. There would be a screen inside that little cup. You would drop the incense in it. And like the length of it, of course, is protecting you from the heat reaching you all the way. And there is a possibility that that was hollow. And in order to keep the charcoal going so it wouldn't go out, you could blow in it as well. And kind of poking around to see if that can be something that can exist. Anyway, so Illyria is trying to track down some stuff. Dusty asks if I ever take ritual baths for purification. I do a lot more with showers for myself as a way of cleansing and releasing. And in fact, my daily ritual is when I first get up. There's some stretching and some breathing that I do, and then I do like a full meditation and cleanse in the shower. And for me, the water running over and all of that. And I do it in very, very low lighting so that I can just be there, immersed in the experience, eyes closed, just clearing everything out, clearing out the cobwebs, meditate on the night before, and then, let it all go and start my day. Okay, so we've got a Bakur burner. This is one of the fancier ones.
I could not find the other ones.
Yeah, I'm not sure where I stuck them. So this is one of the Bakur burners. This is by a company called Attar Mist. And it's got like a little drawer to hold your incense. And this is the working part of it. So it opens up and you can see one of the cups. And you can see why I warn you that this shit stains everything. So you want to line everything. So it comes with a heating element and a little additional metal cup that you want to probably line. Plugs into the wall. And then the reason I picked this one up in particular is then it also lets you specifically down to from 50 degrees to 340 degrees, decide how hot you want it to be. And this one's super fancy because it also has a setting where you can have it to burn for 1 hour and automatically turn off, and up to 5 hours with an automatic turn off. And most of them, like when I saw the picture, I was like, I'm not sure about the plastic like bling on this, but you know, it actually kind of works. So this is one of many styles of Bakur burner. Probably the most common is like, it's got a little base and it's got some legs and then just kind of a, I think it's like a 4 or 6 sided cup that comes up, and then the inside of it looks exactly like this. So it's got the heating element and this detachable cup. And some of them will come with like little tin cups that you add in there that are intended to be disposable.
My
Ozzy
cat's
knows that
upset.
you're here.
My cat's are real upset. He
I-
wants in. Do you think I could? Is it a bad idea to let him in? He's such a sad baby, crying at the door.
All right, fine, bud.
Ozzy. Hello. Oh, you just
Yeah,
want
they just want to go under the bed.
This is the good bed to hide under.
As long as you don't feel it, little shit.
I'm catching up to you.
Yeah.
Aha.
Yeah, Atar Mist is the company that I've bought most of the burners from. There is also a really fancy one. I've looked for where they get this from because it's clearly imported from Japan. It is a lotus burner. It's black. It's got this pretty like gold detailing on it. The whole thing is ceramic around the you know actual bit that heats everything up. It is for sale on a site called Mermaid Magical Arts. Mermaid spelled M-A-D-E, like crafted, magical with a K. They also make incense and a bunch of other things. It is pricey. It's on the high end, like $69, $70, something like that. It is gorgeous. It comes well packed, and it works very well. It also has a dial, so it lets you decide like how hot and how cold it's supposed to get. The ceramic crafting of the exterior is very, very eye-catching. Makes me a little worried that I'm going to knock it off of something at some point, though. So yeah, I have less of expectation that the metal ones are going to just shatter into a billion tiny pieces. But the Mermaid Magical Arts one is pretty cool too, if you can afford it. Okay. Yes, you have caught up with me.
Aha.
I guess I need to grab another.
I'm also nearly at the end of the tins that we have ready right now.
Okay. Well,
So this is working out pretty good.
there are. I think I have more tins.
Oh, I just mean.
Well,
ready.
no, I'm
No.
pretty sure I've bought more.
No, I'm saying there's more in the corner in this room. There's more in that box.
Oh, okay, never mind then.
They're just not prepared yet.
I'm just trying to. I'm trying to remember if I had brought more up, or if these were ones. Like basically, I'm trying to like calculate tins in my head. Because I bought 2 more boxes, and then I bought some tiny little like they're like from the 70s or 80s, like little lip gloss slides for 0.2 ounces of anything, and I was going to use those as samples for the wearable Kifi experiments that are going to be made more like a balm.
Oh my gosh, those things are so cool.
They don't look very good, so like I mean, they just look like a weird custard in a jar right now.
Yeah,
unless you
but
have
it's not how
smell-o-vision, you can't
It's
figure
not how
out.
they look. It's
Yeah.
how they smell. Like yeah.
Yeah.
There was a really good day where I got to try one of those out, and everything smelled better, including you, which is difficult. You always smell good.
Let's see. Anything piquing my curiosity these days? New rabbit holes. Always something new. Let's see. What are the most recent rabbit holes I've gone down? I mean, I had to like do a refresher course on a bunch of Nostradamus not that long ago for a thing I can't talk about yet. Let's see. Honestly, I sort of took a little bit of a vacation in December and for my birthday month, January. So I've mostly been digging into Dungeons and Dragons 5th edition to like learn the new system and get confident with it, because I have made kind of, if I have made a resolution for 2021, it is to value play as much as I value work and try to make sure I have a balance in both of those.
It's a damn good resolution.
I mean, I was, in order to like kind of move into my alchemy nook down in the basement, I was going through old. So I used to be very involved in the zine culture in the late 80s and early to mid 90s. I published a zine myself called Shadow Dance, and also another thing called the Midnight Sun, which was the newsletter for the International Society of Vampires. And I had a very extensive sort of pen pal network with other producers of zines, from Chad Savage, now of like Sinister Visions, and Willem Hotfrog Pugmire, who has sadly passed away.
That's an amazing name.
Yes, yes. He had the distinction of being basically kink shamed by Harlan Ellison at a convention. Weird circles. But anyway, so I'm not a hoarder, although Illyria might.
No, I have
Well, I don't
never come close
But
to
but
saying
but
you're
but
a
I but I
hoarder.
do I will say that I do not like, yeah, I'm not a hoarder, but I will say that I hang on to, if it is printed material, if it's a magazine, if it was a newsletter, and I think that it had any significance or has archival worth at all, I have hung on to it.
Pack rat. I would say pack rat.
Yeah.
In the nicest sense.
Well, I was just cleaning all of that out. You know, for those of you who know what I do, like my wheelhouse is goth and vampire, like that community, and that's where I was most active. But I've also always been involved and active in paranormal, ghost hunting, and pagan circles. Not to mention kink. But I also had a number of issues of stuff that were related to like the Roswell anniversary in 1997. A bunch of pagan stuff. So I sorted some things out and I donated some stuff to Greg and Dana of the Traveling Paranormal Museum. And I donated some stuff to the Buckland Museum of Witchcraft and got those out of, you know, basically, here, take these, I have safeguarded them, they are cool, and they will do much more good in your museum than in a box in my basement. Making me happy, making them happy, making Illyria happy, and opening up more space for Kifi ingredients.
Because that's exactly what's happening.
Cool. This is so good. Well, you're gonna get ahead because I'm gonna stop after the next like 5.
Well, I'm just going to do this little section. Should I do more silver mirror?
No, we've got like 12.
Okay. Well, and I like to make sure that like I take a break, wash my hands, and I'm not transferring scent from one to the other.
Yeah.
This is also why I had held off making more because I was almost out of dragon's blood. And
the price jump.
I was not going to pay $120 or $60 for a pound of dragon's blood, which is the price that popped up all over the place right after I made that, because it was the middle of the pandemic, and it just between the overseas stuff, like it's come back down, like it's closer to $60 a pound now, and that's actually pretty normal for this. Like the myrrh is between $60 and $80 a pound. It depends on where you're sourcing it from. It depends on how sustainably it's sourced, and a bunch of different factors. But long story short, most of this stuff is not cheap. What? Does somebody have like a beagle? Because that's like a belling hound.
Yeah.
And it sounds very unhappy to be outside.
Ozzy?
Is he still under there?
Don't see him. But I thought he was.
I don't remember seeing him go outside.
Well, he's a stealth kitty. He's vanished in the underbed.
That's great. I mean, Bliss came.
He dare he?
Bliss snuck in here the other night, and I had to like leave her in here long enough until she thought that I had locked her in.
I found him.
Okay.
He's right here.
Oh
He just wanted to.
yeah. We've sent one round of orders out already. This is going to be the round of orders that came through like yesterday, and anything that comes through today. The idea was a lot more orders come when I'm streaming, so I'll stream while I'm doing it, so we can just like get everybody to place their orders if they're going to, and we can just en masse stick it all in the post office so that we can reduce the number of trips that we make.
I've got a purring cat under this bed.
Okay.
You're very pleased.
I've got sticky Kifi. This one has such a warm, just I don't know, cozy. The lunar eclipse protection in the dark hours has a cozy smell to it. It's a good thing I like it because I'm going to smell like it for the rest of the day.
Yay!
All of the current ones, so Lunar Eclipse and Silver Mirror and Phoenix are all currently available in the shop. Phoenix launched in the shop yesterday. We've got a fair amount of it still. So even if like today or later tonight you go up and it says sold out, there will be more. We're trying to like ration how much we put up so that we don't overstate how much we have to roll. Because the last thing I want is to get somebody excited about being able to get a hold of it and then have to like email them and say, well, actually we only have 3 pieces left. Would you like something else? Because when that happens to me, I'm just like,
so upset.
oh, I mean, okay, but like frustrated expectation is a special type of pain.
Right.
And you always feel kind of shitty for feeling like angry about it, but it's a thing.
Yeah.
I mean, at least I do. Like,
No, I do too on both counts, both the disappointment and the
Yeah.
fact that it's like tied to.
I was excited about this exact.
and now I can't get the
Can't
thing
have
that
it.
I really liked, and that's sad.
Yeah. I'm gonna take what we've already rolled downstairs and start on the next phase.
Putting
The
stuff in
packing of
envelopes.
orders.
Yep.
Yeah.
So there's that little section of the original one
Mm.
that I'm thinking about releasing like a limited edition of. I still have plenty for House Kepler. Like there's still a bunch in the Kifi pot. And there's the middle. So there's the weird middle child of the one that I made, the travel channel.
Right.
And I'm not quite sure what to do with that one. That one, it's not the one that I used, like the specific pastilles that I took with me, because we sold those off.
Yeah.
But I had made several experimental like mini batches, basically using that as a starter, almost like a sourdough starter.
Mhm.
And so I used that as the base, like the original one as a base, and then I added things, and it worked. But it's got a very different texture.
I mean, I think if we describe it and describe what it was
Yeah.
for, then
I'm
makes sense
just
to-
trying to figure out like how it all goes together.
I mean, very much as with the archival things, I feel like all of this does better
Yeah.
when it's in a place where it's not just sitting under another batch of Kifi.
Yeah, I mean, my one complaint with the sort of like in between batch is that was when I learned that I have to be very, very, very determined at grinding the lemongrass.
Mhm.
Because otherwise it looks like there is straw in the Kifi.
Mhm.
Because the lemongrass does not mush down, like it stays pretty much looking exactly like how you put it in.
Gotcha.
It didn't break up much. In the same way that I learned that Opoponax, just some parts of it simply will not melt. Like I need to crush that bitch, like just crush it before I put it in. Like there's no melting it into the honey the way that frankincense will just completely melt
Yeah.
into the honey.
Which is so weird. Did I tell you I had a dream about Kifi like 2 or 3 nights ago?
No.
Okay. After it was the night that you showed me the double boiler and
Yeah.
how that worked. So in my dream, there was there was the base and there was the thing in the boiler itself. I ended up like carrying them around. I was trying to pour them together, but accidentally like drank a bunch of it or like spilled it on the floor and drank some, and I was like, we have this much left from like a giant batch. I was like, I'm so sorry, I don't know what happened to it. Clearly Kifi on the brain.
Yeah. All right. I think we will bid you all adieu. Adieu. Might stream a little bit later because why not avoid what's on the news right now? It's just not like I can do anything about it at the moment. I adore you all. Thank you for popping in. If you are in a good financial place and you're curious about it, feel free to pop up onto the website and order some. If you are not in a good financial place, there will always be more. Take care of yourself first, please. It's a rough time. A lot of things are uncertain. And if I don't see you again today, thank you and good night.
Good night.